Jonathan Oliver says, "Hey guys, hope you're well. The Rudiger rumor mill is starting up again. I've seen talk that the club want him to start at center back and push Alaba to left back, which would put Mendy starting from the bench. What do you guys think about this? Would it be an upgrade or downgrade on our current backline? I think there are pros and cons for both. I just wanted to get you guys' take." And I'm going to read one more. Daniel Smith says, "To follow up on Jonathan's question, if the club sign a high-quality center back like Rudiger and Alaba moves to the left, could you put Mendy at right back? Does that make any sense for the team? Those four at the back would be a solid defensive unit. Having seen Rudiger in person in a couple games, he would be a massive help to the backline."
Look, I'm not everyone who has been following for the last few months or so will know that I'm not a huge Mendy fan. So I think that it would be an upgrade, getting kind of rid of having to start Mendy in every single game of the season. On the left back spot, I realize that he's a strong defensive left back, but I expect more of our Real Madrid, of an undisputed starter in Real Madrid, and I know that obviously he's under both Roberto Carlos and Marcelo's shadow, and that's not easy. And I'm not expecting Real Madrid's left back to be neither Marcelo nor Roberto Carlos, but I think an undisputed starting in the backs for Real Madrid has to contribute a little bit more offensively than what Mendy has been shown for the last few years. So I think it will be an upgrade, signing Rudiger and moving Alaba, who is great, and I think he's way better than Mendy at that spot. And also, I think it will be an upgrade for the center back spot. I think Alaba, as great as a leader as he's been, you can tell that he's not a natural center back in some certain scenarios, like for example when the ball is in the air. And I think that having someone like Rudiger there would be an upgrade for Madrid. Although I don't know if it would be worth the cost, in the sense that it seems to me that Rudiger is asking for quite a big contract. I know that he probably deserves it because he's a high quality center back, but at the same time, I don't know if the upgrade would be as big as a contract that Rudiger is demanding. So it's a thin line we're talking about here. I realize it's a matter of inches here, and it's hard for me to find a proper solution to this problem, because I realize that Real Madrid might not think that it's worth it to pay Rudiger the contract he's asking when they are at the same time focusing on adding some other elements to the squad that could be potentially more decisive than this. But if the question is whether or not I think this would be an upgrade, yes, I think so.
It's definitely an upgrade from an offensive perspective, and given the fact that Rudiger is so good defensively and actually is pretty good on the ball as well, I mean, it's an upgrade overall, I think. That's assuming that we get, like, the current version of Mendy, I would say, since the new year has made me change my thoughts towards him, because he just hasn't looked the same, and it's not necessarily his fault that he's injured, but I'm starting to be more worried about him now than I was in December, because when he was healthy up until the new year, he was the best defensive left back in the world. And I think on his day, he still is. But his defense was so good that you didn't worry as much with some of his offensive, let's say, inability or lack of synergy with Vinicius. But given the fact that when he's on the field, he's not looking the same defensively even. I mean, he's looked fine. It's not that he's been disastrous, but he's not like he hasn't been in complete lockdown mode like we saw that in some big games since the new year. And so I think the one that really stands out is against PSG in the first leg, where you could argue he wasn't 100%, but that's the point. It doesn't look like he's just the same right now. And if you don't get the 100% fully fit Mendy consistently, it becomes a problem, because if you're playing him sporadically and he comes back and he's not the same, he becomes a liability at that point because he's not offering anything offensively. And so if you're putting it that way, yeah. And I mean, Alaba, you kind of saw it yesterday too with the game against Osasuna, how good he can be offensively. You saw the shot from like 35 yards, although I guess he can do that from the center back position as well. But there were definitely moments where Nacho let him go up the field and help and combine a little bit with Rodrigo and Benzema on that side. And obviously he scored a goal too off the set piece. He's really capable offensively, right?
Yeah, I realized, Kian, that Ancelotti doesn't want to break Alaba's synergy with Militao.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever Mendy isn't available, it makes no sense to me to play Nacho as a left back instead of Alaba there and moving Nacho alongside Militao. It makes no sense to me. I realized that Ancelotti went for this solution I'm just talking about at the beginning of the season, and it didn't work fine for Real Madrid, and Real Madrid actually struggled defensively. But it's time now that there's a better synergy between the whole defensive line. I think it would make sense to actually try moving Alaba to the left back spot whenever Mendy isn't available. I'm fine with kind of sacrificing Alaba's offensive potential whenever Mendy is there, because Mendy is great defensively as a left back, but Nacho isn't that brilliant neither defensively and definitely not offensively. So it makes no sense to go for this solution, at least against sides like Osasuna last night, or other beatable opponents that you expect to have more control of the ball and to need more creativity overall. So I think it will be worth it to kind of move Alaba to the left back spot permanently, and that in order to do that you will need to sign a high quality defender. If Rudiger is the answer, then so be it. But Real Madrid definitely need to know that it won't come cheap.
So I still think Alaba's best position is the left center back role, but he's one of those players who are just overcycling.
Better than the left back, though.
I think so, because I think from the first of all, he reads the game really well defensively. But the thing is,
that's true.
Apart from he looks lost on defending crosses a lot, as does our whole team. That's a problem. But his step up interventions and his also, we talked about his understanding with Militao. You mentioned it, but the other thing I'd mention actually is understanding with Mendy has been very good as well. And again, that's part of the reason why I think it's kind of bizarre why Mendy and Vinicius haven't clicked at all, because Mendy and Alaba have clicked pretty well, but the other way it just hasn't clicked at all. So I was hoping that we had more progress, but there's been zero progress. I still think Alaba's a better left center back, but I just wanted to make a couple more points that you touched on. First of all, the question about Mendy at right back. He's played there a couple times for Real Madrid. He's played there a couple times for France national team as well, and it's not a solution. I mean, the sample size is tiny. He didn't do much there from that side. I actually went back to my notes from last season because I watched those 4 games, and it's just like a plan Z. It's not something you do every game. It's not
Absolutely.
Like let's move Mendy to right back type of thing. And the other thing is a point about Rudiger. Let's say obviously it depends on where the negotiations land, if that's going to be something that progresses. I was actually really happy with the way the 2 legs against Chelsea panned out. I mean, everyone was happy who's a Real Madrid fan, but I've been really high on Rudiger for a while now. I really like him as a player. He's one of those players you absolutely hate playing against, but you would love to have on your team. Like, it's just annoying. Like, we could totally complain about some of his antics even, but he's kind of like that Pepe in a way. But he's just really good, and his defending over the course of 2 legs was really good, apart from, obviously, that sequence where Benzema scores at the end. But the reason I actually liked it is because a lot of Real Madrid fans were not complaining, when Rudiger was linked with us, there was a lot of noise of like, oh, he's a systems player, only plays in the back 3. I mean, he played in the back 4. And he played really well. And I just wanted Real Madrid fans to see that. And I wanted Real Madrid to see that as well. I think we saw him up close. We saw how good he was. Goes for a couple other players there too. Not Ruben Loftus-Cheek. Reece James is another one that we were all impressed with. It's good that we saw this up close, because if there's any chance of signing 1 or 2 of those guys, I think we should do it. If it's realistic and it's feasible and it's reasonable, I think we should do it.
Yeah, but you only want him for that purposes, though. If you say that Alaba's best position is center back,
Sorry, say
or
that
you
again.
would consider I mean, if you want or you are in favor of Real Madrid signing Rudiger, but at the same time saying that you think Alaba's best spot is as a left center back, so you either want to move to a 3-man defensive line, or you only want Rudiger for depth purposes and to kind of being able to switch between players from time to time, right?
I want depth, is what I want, because I'm not even just thinking about Alaba. I'm also thinking about Militao, who really, like, right now he looks like he could just use a break because something's going on with him right now. To just have the luxury to be able to switch between. So let's say theoretically, if we had Rudiger last night, it would have been easy, right? It was just Alaba left back, Rudiger, and Militao. I just think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for that because center back is one that we've had so much injury and suspension historically that there's going to be so much time for all these guys to play. And obviously, wing backs play a factor in this too because Alaba can cover for both wingbacks, and also just because, as much as I love Nacho, it would be nice to have another option there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but assuming
that's my train
available...
of thinking. But I guess the problem with what I'm saying is that Rudiger is going to be an expensive person for depth. So
Exactly.
Are you okay with having an expensive piece for that?
Yeah,
position?
and who seats if in the Champions League semifinals if everyone's available?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know.
I would probably go for whoever the right back is, Militao, Rudiger, and Alaba instead of and I would probably sit Mendy. But I don't know if you have this problem. There's probably going to be some frustration to handle from the coaching staff. So it's a tricky one, the Rudiger thing, and whether or not you actually need another center back. But I agree with you that some more depth will be needed for the defensive line because I think Nacho has played too often this season.
Yeah, I'm also very cautious generally about. I think sometimes we go too far with the whole depth thing because I think too much depth is often the problem. Actually, it causes problems. Like you're not going to keep everyone happy. It causes dressing room gets upset. There's some tension. You don't want players' development to stall. But I think for certain situations you really need it. And I also think like while we need the depth of the center back position, the other one is I think Mendy could really use some competition. Like someone to keep him on his toes, and whether it's somebody like Rudiger and then Alaba goes to left back, or Miguel takes a leap and we give him more playing time or we bring back regular, whoever it is. I don't know who it is, but I think Mendy needs some actual competition, like someone legit.
Right.
What's up, Madridistas on YouTube? What you just listened to was a segment from the world-famous Real Madrid mailbag, which happens every single Thursday for Managing Madrid patrons over on patreon.com/Managing Madrid exclusively. If you want access to that, again, patreon.com/Managing Madrid. You get so much bonus content, and coming up is the Manchester City games, first leg and second leg. Those will both be live on Zoom, and if you want access to the Zoom link and also just listen to it if you can't attend, then you have to be a patron. So patrons get a Zoom link, and they can also download it after the fact and listen to it on their podcast app or their Patreon app, wherever they listen to it. And again, patreon.com/Managing Madrid. We are going crazy with content. We are on a content rampage. We are relentless, and we give you so much value, and you become part of this amazing, ever-growing Real Madrid family. Again, patreon.com/Managing Madrid. See you on the inside, and Hala Madrid.